Well, good evening and a very blessed Christmas to each and every one of you. I hope that the Christmas rush has finally come to an end for you, that you've bought all those gifts that you were planning to buy, you've wrapped all the presents, and now you can just take a little bit of a breath, right? I hope that's the case. But you know, gifts have become such a big part of our Christmas experience these days. We want to make sure that we get the exact right gifts for all of our loved ones. We want to get the right number of gifts. We want to make sure we don't forget anyone in our lives. But you know, when we think about gifts, I wonder if you can think about the Christmases in the past, if you can remember some of those gifts you've gotten. Do any of them stand out in your mind? You know, I have a few that stand out in my mind, but interestingly, what stands out more for me is a gift that I gave one time. It's about 28 years ago. You see, my brother Mike and I, we were both young adults at the time. We were living here in Texas, and my parents lived in Memphis. We happened to both be working jobs where we had to work on December 24th. So as a family, we just decided we would celebrate Christmas late. So Mike and I went to Memphis after Christmas, and then we celebrated Christmas a few days late. But when we got to Memphis, neither my brother nor I had figured out a gift for my mom, but thankfully, my dad gave us an idea. He said that before Christmas, he and my mom had been shopping at a nearby Hallmark store, and my mom had just fell in love with this nativity set. And so my dad said, she loved that. You should go buy that and give that to her. So my brother and I did that. And bonus, it was after Christmas, 50% off. So we did the gift exchange, and when my mom opened this package and saw the nativity set, she burst into tears. She was just overwhelmed with this gift. To this day, I remember that reaction. And to this day, that nativity set has a prominent place in my mother's house each Christmas. It sits on my mother's piano every year, as it is sitting tonight in Memphis. Now, I would argue that the gifts that we remember the most, whether they were gifts that we gave or ones we received, well, they end up being memorable for a specific reason. And that has to do with the consideration, the thoughtfulness that goes into the gift. So the giver of the gift has identified something within the receiver, something they want, something they need. There's something there, and the giver responds to that, fills that need, that want. And that makes the receiver of the gift feel special. They feel known. They feel understood. They feel loved. You know, just a couple of weeks ago in our staff meeting, Pastor John told a story of a memorable gift that he once gave. This was when he was in his youth, and he was living with his mother and his brother. And because his mother was raising 2 kids alone, she had to work long hours, factory work. She was on her feet all the time. And John, knowing how tired she was all the time, he decided to get her an ottoman for Christmas. That way, after a long day at work, she could relax by propping her feet up. And John distinctly remembers buying that ottoman from a Woolworths. Remember that place, right? And he distinctly remembers how happy his mother was to receive that gift. She would go on and on about how special that ottoman was. You see, John recognized a need, and with great empathy and thoughtfulness, he figured out a way to help his mother. And that was a wonderful Christmas gift because it perfectly modeled what happened on that first Christmas day so long ago. We humans, well, we were struggling. We tried to follow God's commands, tried to be faithful to God's wishes, but no matter how hard we tried, we failed. Our own desires and selfishness got in the way. Our own arrogance that we really didn't need God anyway, that got in the way. Our inability to even treat each other decently got in the way. But God saw all of this, and with consideration and thoughtfulness and empathy, God recognized that we humans needed something that we didn't even know that we needed. God saw that we needed a gift, the gift of His loving presence in our world. So God sent a part of Himself, His only Son, into our human existence, which is why one of the names of this baby in the manger is Emmanuel, which means God is with us. You see, in His infinite wisdom, God decided that the best way to show us humans His magnificent love, the best way for us humans to feel really known and understood, was to give us God's own physical presence in our world. That in being among us and with us, He could show us how to live and how to love as He wants us to. He could show us what He considers to be important in this life. And through the ultimate act of love, He could provide a way that we might always feel His presence. And thanks to what's recorded in the Bible, we have a clear picture of all of this in the life and teaching of Jesus. We see just how important the idea of presence is. Jesus showed incredible compassion to those who lived in the margins, the poor, the sick, the outcasts, those rejected by society because they were called sinners. He didn't ignore them. Instead, He was present for them, healing them, helping them. And Jesus preached that what God ultimately desires for us is rather simple: to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. So we are asked to keep God as a constant presence in our lives and to be present for those around us. And in the greatest act of love, Jesus showed that He was willing to take on suffering, rejection, and a cruel death on our behalf. And in doing this, God has restored our relationship with Him for all time. Forgiveness and grace is ours no matter how many times we fail. So we hold fast to that promise that God's presence continues to be with us now, no matter what comes our way, both in the good times and in the most difficult times. No matter what, we are not alone. And we also believe that this promise to always be with us extends beyond this life we live now, that when we do take our last breath, we move into God's presence in a new and glorious way. So I have a thought for us this evening, and it has to do with the gifts we might give for Christmas this year. What if we did something more than just give the physical, tangible gifts we always give? You see, the tangible gifts we give to each other, even the most meaningful ones, well, they're temporary. They don't last. For instance, that nativity set that I mentioned at the beginning, well, my mom confessed something about it to me. She said that several years ago, she accidentally broke off the head of the baby Jesus. Yeah. Now, she said she glued it back on, but there's some deep theological issues I probably need to grapple with at that one. We don't have time for that tonight, so we'll just leave that. But when I asked my mom, why is this nativity set so special? And she said because it came from the two of us, meaning me and my brother. And knowing my mom, I think it also is tied up with the idea of presence. You see, my brother is no longer with us. He went to heaven in 2004. So that nativity set is a reminder of a time when our family was whole, was fully present. And it's the memory of that time that we had together. Well, that's what will always live on, well beyond the tangible object. So here's my thought about giving this Christmas. As we ponder how this babe, born in Bethlehem, was the very presence of God coming to us, perhaps we can model that. Perhaps in addition to the Christmas presents we give this year, perhaps we can also give our Christmas presents. In addition to giving tangible gifts, perhaps we can give our very selves as well. And my wife, Linnell, interestingly had a similar thought on Facebook this week. You see, her mother, Maria, passed away just a few years ago, and this past Thursday would have been her 88th birthday, and she was an incredibly special person, so full of grace and love. And in remembering her on Facebook, here's what my wife said. She never wanted gifts. She'd always say, "All I want is to see you." She wanted your time. Presence can be a powerful thing, which is why this time of year can often leave us melancholy, sad, as we remember those that we love who are no longer with us, who are no longer in our presence, like Linnell's mother, like John's mother, like my brother and my father. And I know everyone in this room has losses in our lives, and we miss them profoundly this time of year. And that's good, and that's right. And it's also all the more reason to embrace this idea of presence. Because if we're being very, very honest, none of us is guaranteed another day on this earth, let alone another Christmas. So the time is now. Are there people in your life who could use your presence right now? Members of your family, friends, people who just want your time and nothing else. Are there people in your life that could easily be ignored, who without saying it really need your attention? Something like this just happened to my wife the other day. She's a middle school teacher, and they were having their teacher gift exchange party, and she noticed one of her colleagues sort of sitting by herself, looking unwell. Her face was red and puffy. And instead of ignoring that, Linnell went over there and asked her if everything was okay. And this woman, a first-year teacher, explained that she'd been crying. She was upset because despite her hard work in trying to build relationships with these kids, she just had an episode where the kids were incredibly disrespectful to her, and that hurt her feelings. She felt defeated and demoralized. So Linnell listened and engaged, and eventually she got her to a better place. And when Linnell was telling me this story later on, she remarked, "You know, at that gift exchange, that conversation was the best gift I gave." Without a doubt. I'm sure there are people all around each of us who are in need. in our families, amongst our friends and our coworkers, in our community. You see, when we bring our presents to them, we are modeling what God did for us on that first Christmas. When we listen and engage, we're modeling what Jesus did throughout his life. So all of these things, giving our time, being aware, listening, getting involved, these are all gifts that we can give that will live far beyond tangible things. These are all ways that we personally can extend God's loving presence in the world. And that would be the greatest gift of all. So my prayer this evening is simply this. May you always be aware of God's loving presence in your life. May you cling to the promise that this presence will never leave you, neither in this life nor the next. And may you be a Christmas presence to those around you as you fully live into the joy and hope and peace that Christmas brings. Amen.